And I wanted to start tonight with a question, because I love questions. And when we all look around our own communities, I mean, what do we see? We've heard about it tonight. We see these massive issues in education and the environment with all these social issues. And there is no silver bullet. We see governments hamstrung by budget cuts. We see bureaucracy everywhere that we have to cut through. We see great organizations like the four that were up here that need capacity building. Everyone's a David to their particular Goliath, but they still need help to get where they need to go. So there's this huge chasm between where we want to go and where we are. So if there is no silver bullet, what needs to happen? Well, that's really why we're here. And I think what we're doing is very good. The question is, how do we make it absolutely great? So I want to just pose a question. What happens if all of us stepped up to the plate in this room? I mean, really stepped up to the plate. What would that mean? And I think there's a lot of potential in this room. And my dream is that you get somebody that's passion-filled and you connect them to somebody like Krista or Maureen in an area that they're passionate about. And you tell them that there are no limits. Just do whatever you want. Go for it. And what happens? I mean, that's where the real power lies in this room. And at SV2, we've seen what happens. They didn't have time in the 5 minutes we held them to so tight to tell you about all of those things that individual partners have done for them. But it is so powerful, and it is so important. So everybody in this room who's done anything like that, as Mark had mentioned, this concept of being on a journey is really, really important, and I think it's core. And as Nancy just mentioned, I kind of joined in 2005, and I remember attending my first couple meetings. You know, Mark was there and Laura was there, and I go home and say, God, these guys know everything. I don't know anything. What am I going to do? So I just figured, I don't know, I'll just start small. I'll take some organization with only one person. They're going to definitely need help. And that was Reading Partners. They only had one employee. So they needed help. They needed the trash, they needed the road sweep, they needed all kinds of stuff. And that allowed me to just build a little experience. And then that little experience allowed me to work with a slightly bigger organization. And that little experience kind of built and built and built. And along that kind of windy journey, I learned a couple of lessons. I think the first lesson for me was start small, but have no limits. Just jump into the pool and start swimming, and human nature will keep you alive. You'll keep going forward. So that was lesson number one for me. And lesson number two is that what we're doing here is so much more than philanthropy. If you look at what's happened here, when you look at these organizations, we are building great companies. They just happen to be nonprofits, but they are great companies. And if you look at these stories, what you see is we're creating jobs, but they're not just manufacturing line jobs. These are passion-filled jobs for people that transform their lives and everybody that they touch. So when I look at that, I see, why can't we solve some of society's most complex problems? That's really the challenge. So that's kind of been my journey, and then I kind of piggyback that on Mark. So Mark's been a partner since the beginning, 12 years. He's led everything that there's been in SV2. And as you've heard, massive contributions. Basically, all of the great and best nonprofits in Silicon Valley have received pro bono legal advice from Mark. But he was actually humble again. What he didn't tell you is that the depth of the work that he does is enabling new business models for these organizations. And I'll just give you one simple example with an organization that I chair called Reading Partners. They have embarked on a growth strategy that's partly built on acquisitions. And that is because Mark and Wilson Sonsini invested the effort to help formalize that as a process that was replicable. And that is dramatically important. So that's just one simple example. And then let me talk to you again about Krista, who's a great friend. And as we can tell, Krista was in law school, dreaming of the brass ring, saw a huge social need and said, I can solve that problem. And she was off to the races, as we've seen. So she's now built the best, in my opinion, U.S. juvenile justice program in the United States. But again, she's done much more. She's built Fly into a great company. She has dozens of employees who don't worry about going to work on Monday. I mean, they are excited. They're always thinking about it over the weekend. How can I help these kids? So this job creation is huge. And as she said, transforming lives. Every kid that gets incarcerated costs us $100,000 a year, every single year. Okay, and she's transforming their lives into productive tax-paying citizens. That is unbelievable. Okay, so these are just some of the journeys. So when we think about the journeys, I also reflect on what is the core language? What is really happening here at the essence of all this? And when I think about it, at the very core, at the very center, what's actually happening here is we're unleashing human potential. That's really what's happening here. It's all kind of latent potential. And I had a few important remarks I wanted to say, so I'm going to say them. And that really begins as we see it with our partners, with our staff who rises to a new level, with all of the nonprofits we have the pleasure of working with, and in our community at large. So this is actually a huge opportunity for us. And it begins with each of us individually by knowing we do a lot, but we still have more to give because there's more that needs to be done. So each of us, I think, is on this journey. But the beauty of the journey is there's latent potential. Okay, every one of us has this latent potential, okay, for game-changing impact, transformational change. It's there. And all we need to do is unlock it. So as I think about the language, if I think about the core as being unleashing potential, kind of the next thing that I see happening when I look at all of the people here in this room is this kind of stretching that goes on. And this stretching is really kind of this antithesis of settling. I'm not going to settle for the status quo. I'm actually going to stretch. I'm going to work with others and through others to get more done than I could possibly get done on my own. So if I think about the language again, if the core of this is really unleashing potential at the core of what we're doing, and we're giving ourselves an opportunity to stretch, and by stretching, what we end up doing more is that third concentric circle is connecting to people. And this connection is where the real network weaving and power comes in. Okay, it's kind of this core belief that there's more power to be had by going through things together, okay, than trying to go around things alone. And all of these ideas really drive what I'll refer to as a ripple effect. It's kind of the next level of impact that's possible. So what I want to talk to you tonight about is this whole idea of the next level impact and the fact that it begins with you. And I know so many of you in this room, and I know that you all do so much, and they're going to say, oh gosh, Lance is telling me to do something else. I'm not telling anybody to do anything. What I'm saying is what I see when I look at you is this opportunity to unleash potential, this opportunity to stretch, and this opportunity to connect at a higher level. So if we are individuals with vast potential, what we have here is this opportunity. Just one organization built like Fly creates hundreds of incredible jobs for future employees, and it transforms the lives of thousands and then tens of thousands of people. So what I'd urge you to do is think about what additional dent you could put in the world, because you're all out there doing it already. But think about this. Think about what is the full potential that you carry within yourself. Because when I look out at you, all I see is potential. In closing tonight, I want to do a couple things. One is I want to thank you for everything you've done, but I want to challenge you, and I want to challenge you hard to show yourself what you can really do. Thank you.